Hello and welcome to NJ.com's live TV chat with Vicky Hyman. Today we'll be talking about last night's final episode of The Real Housewives of New Jersey, the new Katherine Heigl drama State of Affairs on NBC, and we'll also check in on Showtime's Homeland. Vicky, let's get the fun stuff out of the way. Last night's weird Secrets Revealed Part 2 episode of The Real Housewives of New Jersey was the usual mishmash of stuff. Is it me, or did the producers just take everything they couldn't use, wring it like a dirty washcloth, and just kind of throw it back at us?
That's exactly what they did, but it's what they do every year with this Secrets Revealed, which of course is just rebranded from Lost Footage. There were a couple of fun moments in there, but most of it I could have done without, including the Mortgage Now spoof, which was just kind of Mean Girls-y and very staged. And I certainly could have done without seeing the edge of Joe Giudice's butt crack in the hotel segment.
You mean well, you said in your piece that you had that you had an affinity for the stream of consciousness Joe Giudice.
Oh my God! Well, I actually watched this little segment. He does a toast to his wife, which of course, as it starts off great and then ends somewhere in weird Joe Giudice land, where he's like, oh, to many more nights like this until we're 100. And then honestly, I was looking for an edit, and then he says something like, yeah, when I'm 100, Mike, you need to pump me up, like some sort of penile dysfunction device. Where are you going with this? What is happening here?
Well, the weird thing about that whole segment was, didn't we see a segment like that a season or two ago where they were just about to do what they were going to do in the bedroom? I mean, it just seemed weird, right?
I do remember, I think when they went to the ranch and they were in the hotel room, and they were probably dressed Bellini's naked in the tub. It wasn't as egregious as actually watching Joe strip down in front of me. It was very disturbing.
It was
for that.
Oh. And you're right. When the girls were talking about the Mortgage Now commercial, for me it felt like a geriatric Mean Girls. I mean, that really it was mean-spirited all around, right? It wasn't done for fun.
I mean, at least they weren't. I mean, at least they said, "Oh, the kids are cute," So I mean, they didn't make fun of the kids, which is good. Not that they should be making fun of the kids. Not that kids should be made fun of, which maybe we'll get to a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best thing we can say about that.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't make fun of the kids, but
it was so staged. I mean, Nicole goes over to Melissa and was like, "Hey, Melissa, wouldn't it be fun if we made a commercial?" It's just, it's things like that just drive me insane.
Well, let me ask, why do you think Bravo didn't include that segment when when all that stuff aired?
Well, maybe they needed to lengthen the season, and they needed some just sort of throwaway stuff to put in the Secrets Revealed. But also there was so much happening at that juncture. That was the Florida trip. That was, no, but I think your mom. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on, so I can see how it got cut.
All right, well, let's get into talking about something a little touchy. The last segment of the night dealt with the hijinks of Melania. She did everything last night, from getting into a makeup kit to climbing out of a window, and someone tweeted at you that she was the worst. Isn't that a tad unfair since, what is she, 7 or 8? That's what little kids do.
Well, actually, Gia doesn't even know if she's 7 or 8, apparently.
Well, there's that. Her sister doesn't know how old she is, but, I mean, she's a little girl. She's prone to get into things and have some crazy hijinks. Right?
I think, well, somebody tweeted at me, Melania is the worst. I don't know. I just sort of I responded in I don't remember how I responded, but somebody else tweeted at me and a couple other people saying, how can you say that? She's a little girl. Don't you have children? And by the way, yes, I have a child who's older than Melania. I know where she's coming from. When we say Melania is the worst, we're really saying Teresa's parenting is the worst, isn't it? I kind of wait until the kids are legal to make fun of them. Like, I really, there's plenty I could be saying about, like, Gia's, camera hogging antics, and I don't, because her mother has, in some cases, put her in these situations where she's just not going to look very good. But when they turn 18, all's fair. So when Ashley Holmes graduated from high school and was just awful to her mother a couple of seasons ago, I let it rip. But generally, yeah, we're sort of like saying, yeah, Melania, she said, I think last night, shut your butthole or something, which is not something that you should be saying to your parent. It's not something your parent should let you say on television. But it's really a reflection of Teresa's parenting, and like, where does that come from? It comes from the parents.
Well, it's over. The season is over for you, Vicky.
Free at last.
Tell us how sad you are about this. I know you are, right?
I cry into my pillow every single night. No, I appreciate Real Housewives. I know it has a lot of fans. I know a lot of people read my recaps much more so than pretty much everything else I write, for better or for worse. And I have really enjoyed live tweeting with them. They are very, very funny people. But I do get my life back. I mean, it takes up a lot of time to do these every Sunday night now for the past few weeks, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the courtroom proceedings will probably continue. So I'll probably have to get used to that really hard courtroom bench.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll be chatting about that at some point sometime soon. So let's switch gears real quick and chat about Katherine Heigl's return to series TV with State of Affairs.
Much awaited, right, Anthony?
Much with bated breath. Off the bat, it's impossible to not make comparisons to Homeland, right? I mean, I think the general consensus is it wasn't as bad as one would think, and Katherine Heigl certainly delivered, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a network show, and she delivers a good performance on a network show. I mean, it's very glossy. It's not terribly gritty. It tries to be edgy, but it's not really edgy. I think that actually, I think it did it went decently in the ratings. So it's not Homeland, which is sort of what it wants to be in that sort of edgy way. It sort of wants to be Scandal a little bit, but it's not quite as ridiculous or soapy as that, although Katherine Heigl's really working those stilettos and the very nice leather blazers and stuff. It sort of wants to be a lot of things, and we only saw one episode. It's a problem. I mean, it's the last broadcast TV premiere of the season, and we only got one episode, so it's really hard to make a full judgment. But I thought it wasn't terrible.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about Homeland in a second, but let's chat why State of Affairs may miss the mark just a little bit. I mean, granted, we'll have to watch more episodes, but judging from the more than serviceable pilot, to me, it came off as a glossy supermarket version of Homeland. I mean, there's no way to slice that. I mean, it got better as the hour went on, but 7 minutes in, I was groaning that I had to watch the rest of this. It got better, but talk to me.
I think the issue is that it's network TV, and so it can't be as edgy as the cable dramas. It was just a pastiche of a lot of different shows. There was a little West Wing banter in there when she was introducing the other briefers to the new guy on the team. Katherine Heigl, just to explain, she is the person who puts together the top 10 threats to America, global terrorism-wise, and presents it to the president every week. And she works with a few other people, so it's a little bit of workplace drama going on there as well. It's just she's playing a role. She's not fully inhabiting the role, like to bring up Homeland again, like Carrie does on Homeland. It's a little dumbed down. It's a little too cut and dried, whereas you're not getting sort of the murkiness that I think makes Homeland so great most of the time. Alfre Woodard is great. There is a nice, interesting arc. Alfre Woodard's son also happened to be Katherine Heigl's fiance, and he was killed in a terrorist attack they were all involved in Kabul a year ago. And Katherine Heigl maybe has a little guilt about that. We're going to learn more about that as the season progresses, if the season progresses. Well, so I think that's interesting.
What concerns me is that it may look like another similar property called Zero Dark 30. And what I mean by that is that there's going to be a lot of people staring at monitors and running through hallways. Can you do that for 20-some-odd episodes before we all start yawning?
Well, that is a problem because, if they ever do find who is behind this terrorist attack, then kind of where do you go from there? Zero Dark 30 was a movie with an end. You don't have to go on from there. What does it do after that? It has to keep coming up with different plot lines moving forward, and so far, I don't know. I have a little bit of hope for this one.
Well, what's interesting to me is that this show is executive produced by Joe Carnahan, and you may know who he is. He's the director of Narc, Blood Guts, Bullets and Octane, Smoking Aces, The A-Team, the list goes on and on. This guy's a heavy-hitting action director. Maybe that's an indication that there may be some action-packed scenes coming up. Right?
I hope so. I mean, there was a little bit of spycraft in this first episode where Katherine Heigl is suddenly, she makes a decision that the head of the CIA does not agree with, and he kind of like sort of puts her on leave unwillingly, and she has to, get into the White House somehow, which she manages to do with surprising and a little bit worrisome ease. Another one of the more unbelievable aspects of the show. So, and James Remar showed up as a sort of fixer who helped her, who helped her out of the jam, and I thought he was great. I'm always happy to see him. I know you're a fan.
You brought that up. I was going to say that, to me, the best minute and a half of that pilot was with James Remar. In fact, that's the show I want to see. I want to see a show about that guy.
Well, I wonder, is a show about that guy a little, not really, but the show replaces, oh my God, I'm blanking on this. No. The James Spader, the Blacklist. Thank you. Sorry, yes. It replaces the Blacklist while the Blacklist goes on a hiatus. And so there's also elements of that where you're playing this, sort of guy who's in the life, very cagey, very charismatic, and much more. James Spader's much more charismatic than Katherine Heigl if his hair isn't quite as nice. He doesn't wear as sharp shoes. So there's also elements of that, and so I could sort of see this working.
So you're going to stick with it?
No, I didn't say that. I did not say that. There are only a certain number of shows that I can watch, and I'm going to watch 1 or 2 more episodes.
Okay, well, that's what I meant. You're going to stick with it. Okay.
For a little while.
All right, well, moving on. After mostly gripping first and second seasons, and to me, a disastrous third, Homeland had what I thought was the best episode of the season Sunday night. Tell me, is it back to form, do you think?
Well, it's back to form if you just forget about Brody all the time. For me, the first, second, third seasons of Homeland, I actually never bought the whole Carrie-Brody romance. Even in the very beginning when the first season, which was so critically lauded, I just didn't feel it. I didn't see it happening. I like the spy part of the show. I like the terrorism part of the show. I do not like the romance aspects of the show. And so in the fourth season, there's a little romance brewing with Quinn, I guess, or maybe it's just going to be unrequited through the whole fourth season. Right. So the fourth season focuses more on the spycraft. Once you get rid of Carrie's baby, that is. And so I don't know what's going on with that, but there's this whole, the subplot where she had a baby with Brody. Is she going to, go home and take care of it? She can't take the baby with her to Pakistan. And that's just kind of been forgotten, and I'm perfectly happy. Please never go back to the baby. The baby can just be adopted by the sister. I will be happy with that. I love what's happening this season with she's back with Saul, who was kicked out of the CIA, sort of like he's no longer director at the end of the last season. But he's wound his way back in, and this plot that he's in right now where he's been kidnapped by the terrorist that Carrie's been tracking, and the terrorist wants to use him in a prisoner exchange, which Saul does not want because it goes against everything Saul believes in. And so it ended up being this absolutely gripping episode where Carrie, trying to save Saul's life, basically he makes an escape, and she basically leads Saul back into the hands of Haqqani, this terrorist. And Saul is not happy about it, to say the least. And, supposedly this Sunday's episode is when the prisoner exchange takes place and goes immediately awry. And there's, are we going to be saying goodbye to Saul? That would kill me. I mean, it would be like in The Walking Dead when they lopped off Herschel's head. I mean, it would be worse than that for me.
Let's hope Saul's okay. I mean, to me, Homeland always worked, even on a basic level because of one reason, and that's Claire Danes. I mean, she can do and say things, with her shoulders and her eyes. I mean, to me, that's how good she is. A little quivering chin. It's amazing. And so no matter how bad the show went off the rails with the Brody romance, she, for me, held it together.
Well, to me, it's her and Saul hold it together for me. That is the most believable aspect of the show. And I'm afraid, like 5 years down the line, somebody's going to be like, let's do a prequel with, how Saul came to be Saul. And I'm like, no, it is just, without giving you so many details about, like, how they develop this relationship, they just make you believe it. You just believe everything that comes out of their interactions. They're just amazing together. And so how can Homeland keep up this momentum going into season 5? I mean, there's only a few episodes left. 4 episodes, I think, maybe 4 episodes left. Yeah. So what can they do to keep this momentum? Ooh, That's why I'm not a screen. That's why I'm not a TV writer. I don't know. I'd like to see her in Pakistan. I'd like to see her stay away from DC. I'd like to see her stay away from her baby. Horrible mother. I really hope they do not kill Saul. I kind of hope that they do not give her this romance with Quinn. I would like her not to have a romance. How about that? I mean,
yeah.
Crazy talk?
No, because the show seemed to kind of fall apart every time Carrie fell in love with Brody, and then it became very soapy, and I've heard many complaints about that. So let's just hope Quinn and she stay apart, right?
I'd like to see him get back together with the landlord. I like that character.
I like her too. All right, well,
bring her to Pakistan.
Could you imagine?
She can manage an apartment complex there.
She most certainly can. All right, well, that wraps it up for us. Be sure to catch us next Friday for our next TV chat. Vicky, say goodbye to your legions of fans.
Bye.
Take it easy, everyone.